Featured on CNN Money. Consistently ranked as a top 10 tier employment attorney by Expertise Connections. A human resources consultant, expert, and advocate. Informational, inspirational, and entertaining. One of the most talked about and progressive shows on social media. Legal Views with attorney Sheila R. Stewart.
Welcome to Legal Views with attorney Sheila R. Stewart, broadcasting live on attorney Sheila R. Stewart TV. We are so excited to have with us the one and only attorney Urenia Riggs Johnson, hailing all the way from Detroit, Michigan. She is our special guest on today. She is going to give us her views regarding Project 25, regarding the new Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris. We are so excited to discuss these issues with you on today. Attorney Johnson is an expert in many areas. She practiced trust and estates. She's a prominent top-tier attorney from Detroit, Michigan. And she's going to share her views regarding what's taking place pertaining to the upcoming presidential election 2024. Welcome. How are you today?
I am great. And thank you, Attorney Sheila Stewart, for this invitation. I'm so excited to be on this worldwide broadcast over the airwaves. You've definitely always been very informative and providing great information to this audience. So I'm glad to be a part and glad to be here today with you.
Well, thank you. We're excited to have you. And this show, we're going to be very casual with each other. You call me Sheila, I call you Urenia. And we're going to just look at, from a neutral perspective, what is taking place with the Republican Party and what is taking place with the Democratic Party. Why? Because we want to give you the information. Once you get the information, you make the decision who you want to vote for and go and vote. We want you to vote in this upcoming election. Now let's dig in on this big issue that's taking place. President Biden has bowed out of the presidential bid and he's not running. And in his place, Vice President Kamala Harris is now running against former President Donald Trump. What are your thoughts about this new candidate that's running against former President Trump?
I think this is a great move. I think that she is a great candidate. I think she's proven from the local level all the way up from local level to the Senate, now Vice President. I think she has an impeccable track record. I think that she has done a lot of things in order to make herself familiar with what it takes to be a politician, but more importantly, what it takes to be at the helm of the highest office within the United States. I think she's been there. She's been in the White House. She's been there with President Biden. I think that a lot of the policies and things that have been implemented, I think she's had her hand in it, even though she may have not have gotten the credit or may have not actually been out front with it. But I think a lot of things that have happened over the last 3.5 years, I think that she's had a lot to do with it. So I do think that this was a good choice. I think that America did start to see the decline that President Biden was experiencing. And I think in order to take the Democratic Party to another level within the United States, I think that this was a good move to push another candidate in Kamala Harris.
Excellent. Interesting. Do you think that Vice President Kamala Harris has energized the Democratic Party?
I think some she's energized. I believe some may not be as excited with the fact of her running, as I think that they were okay with her being vice president. But as far as stepping into the office of the president, I think because this would be history in the making of her being, I mean, she did make history with being the first female vice president. But you know, the president is a different job. You are that person. You are the commander in chief. You are the person that America will look to as far as for direction, for implementation, for just being that figurehead for the United States. And I think in some way she's united the party, but in some way I think that there's still some questions on her ability to be able to win this election.
Okay. She has been, Vice President Kamala Harris has been described by the Republican Party as being ultra liberal. It's been identified as being ultra liberal. What are your thoughts on Vice President Kamala Harris having the ability to unite both parties with this ideology that she's ultra liberal? What are your thoughts?
I think that that's going to be a challenge because I do agree. Her policies are very, very liberal. She has been known for being a liberal party. That's the reason why I think that it's going to be important in who she picks as a vice president in order to kind of help with the uniting. I think that she needs to pick a more moderate person to kind of help when it comes to with being vice president, her vice president choice. But I think that has been correct. Her policies, if you look at her policies that she's implemented and the things that she has really just been on the helm of doing, been very, very liberal. Has not been moderate in by any means. It's been very liberal. So I think that
how are you defining? Let's give some context to this discussion in terms of what ultra liberal means from your perspective. That's part one, and then part two. What are some of these policies that you perceive as being ultra liberal?
One of the policies that I think that she's very liberal on and has been the issue with abortion. She's been very outspoken as far as the the women's rights and women's choice. That is a very liberal stance as far as with the issues of abortion. The issues of human rights. She's been very liberal with the champion of the LGBTQ plus community. She's been very outspoken when it comes to providing rights for those individuals. Now there is a sector of people that have issues with that or would like more of a moderate approach with that, and she has been more of in the realm of just giving outright rights without any type of restraint with it. And I think that with more of a moderate approach, I think that she could bring both parties together, as opposed to just that being a all or nothing proposal that she proposes at times.
Wow. That's really interesting. I'm going to leave your thoughts right there. And I love them because I think diverse opinions and information, it needs to get out. And because I don't think one group of people are homogeneous in thought. And I think it's interesting when you hear the different views from individuals that have learned and studied some of these issues out. Before we go into former President Trump, let's talk about open borders. Open borders is an issue that has been at the forefront of criticism for the Democratic Party, that the borders are open and there's no type of structure in terms of how the borders have been handled, which is hurting the United States of America. That's a viewpoint that's out there. What are your thoughts in terms of that viewpoint?
I believe it's an extremist viewpoint. I do practice in immigration law, and I do believe that there is very few people that have been experienced being victimized by individuals that have come across the border. Okay. I think that the media and the right wing community has made it more of an issue than it really is. I'm not saying that it's not an issue, but I think that if you put it out there where you classify certain people and you want to close the borders when it comes to certain people and not across the board. So, if the issue is closing the borders, then the issue should be closing the borders across the board. It shouldn't just be one class of people where we're singling out and saying that, certain people we have to get the reins on certain people. I think there needs to be clear paths to, if you want to deal with this issue, there needs to be clear paths and clear legislation concerning the pathway to citizenship, the pathway to providing a temporary basis. But right now, we don't have a lot of clear paths. So you do have a lot of illegal people coming over because there's not clear legislation. I think if you had more of a clear legislation, you had more clear policies and procedures. So to that extent, I agree. There needs to be more clear policies and procedures, but I think it does not need to target just specific individuals. It needs to be across the board, a clear pathway to providing illegal immigrants citizenship. And there also needs to be clear pathway for if there's some type of violation for the retention of these individuals to be done expeditiously for them to be removed from the United States. So I think that it's all within the policies and procedures that needs to be implemented.
Okay. Very good. And I love the analysis as it relates to having immigration policies that applies to all individuals that's entering the United States versus maybe singling out a particular group that's entering. I think that's very key. And I think that's very important that you've emphasized that, because I think that is a problem when you constantly identify a particular group when you're not looking at all of the individuals that's coming across the board. Let's talk about former President Trump. Many people, he has a strong base. He has many individuals that's fighting for his victory to get reelected and so forth. Do you think former President Trump is a great candidate or a good candidate for president?
I do not believe he's the best candidate for the Republican Party.
Okay.
I do not believe he's the best candidate. And it's because one is I believe that there has been too much controversy concerning his personal life, the way that he has presented himself to be commander-in-chief of the United States holding this office. I don't think that he provides unification of the nation, which I think is essential for a candidate for president. I also don't believe that he really wants the best for all Americans. Mm-hmm. I believe that Make America Great Again is only for a particular group of people. And I don't think that that's a good quality to have when you have a leader of the free world.
So what do you say to let's just use some African American people. Some African American people believe that former President Trump's policies are more effective and will help create wealth with less governmental interference than some of the Democratic policies, and that his policies will impact the bottom line to help people of color to obtain more wealth. What are your thoughts in terms of that ideology?
I think that it's a small percentage that it will actually help. I think the bridging the gap, I think, should be the focus as opposed to just creating two type of classes, which under his plan, I think that it would only be two types of classes, which will be the rich and the poor. Mm-hmm. And I think if we have that type of ideology and those things, it's going to be hard for individuals to reach even beyond that poverty line to reach the ceiling of getting to the rich status with the way that these policies would be implemented, because I don't think that they would be available to someone that's trying to get out, let's say get out of poverty and reach it to another class, which would be the middle class. Mm-hmm. And I think that his plan would totally eliminate a middle class. And I think the middle class is a lot of the basis of what America has been built on, which is a lot of the middle class families of, people that are not necessarily wealthy, but they are not at the poverty line necessarily as well, and providing them with resources in order for them to make it to a comfortable and a good way of life, or a good quality of life. Let me say it that way.
Okay. So just playing devil's advocate with you here. So for individuals that's coming in and they say, I'm undecided. And I didn't know who I was going to vote for between President Biden and former President Trump. And I'm still undecided. Now that we have Vice President Kamala Harris, that's going to likely be the nominee for the Democratic Party. And then we have former President Donald Trump, the nominee for the Republican Party. And someone is saying, I just don't know. Because the polls today show that Kamala Harris was at 47% and former President Donald Trump is at 48%. And both individuals are within the margin of error, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and I believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is going to pick up some steam because she's just getting started. But for those individuals that's undecided, how is Kamala Harris uniquely qualified for this role, in your opinion?
I believe that she has what we talked about before, is the ability to unify people. I think that she has the ability to really reach individuals, to let them know that she can create policy that will affect their everyday life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because she's experienced all these type of levels. She's experienced it things at the local level. She's experienced it as we know, as a prosecutor, you see a whole lot. You have a lot that comes through your door. You get to experience and you get to see how people live on a daily basis and what they experience, what neighborhoods they come from, things like that. I think that, on the opposite end, I don't think that former President Trump has ever experienced those type of things. So I think that experience would also the lawyer. We both are practicing attorneys, and a lot of times it creates a way for you to kind of understand the gray area of things, and understanding how to balance and thinking about things from both perspectives, from the perspective of the plaintiff side and the defendant side, and ultimately thinking about, even those gray areas. So I think that her being a practicing attorney, and also her being in the Senate, I think that has definitely helped her, because she's been able to see how laws are made. And a lot of people don't understand that a lot of things happen within on Senate floors, and she's been able to cross party lines to get things done and accomplished. We both know that most of those bills, they are hundreds of pages and they have a lot to them. And it's a lot of compromise in there. It's a lot of times where you have to go across your party's line in order to get things done and get things accomplished. I think that's definitely going to help her when it comes to being commander in chief and being the president, because ultimately she would be signing those laws into effect. So I think that her experiences throughout her life has kind of helped her, and her political experience will help her if she is elected as president.
Very good. You were just talking about voluminous bills. Let's talk about Project 25, which is a voluminous document that was allegedly created by the Heritage Foundation, which is an ultra-conservative foundation, think tank type of organization that creates policies and so forth that helps, that their goal is to unify the conservative ideology and to bring thoughts and visions and policies together to unify the conservative movement. And out of the Heritage Foundation was birthed this Project 25. And former President Trump has stated that this is not his platform. He has openly stated that this is not his platform. However, the Democratic Party tend to believe that if he is elected, he would most definitely adopt Project 25, which would be detrimental to many of our rights. Can you tell us about, let's start a discussion, and when this show will have multiple parts to it, because you can't talk about Project 25 in one show. So let's just get started on what Project 25 is and how you believe it may or may not be detrimental to the rights of others.
I do think that it is a very divisive document, and implementation of it would be very detrimental to a lot of people. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's eliminating of a lot of things that we have now in place, which one would be the Department of Education. We look to the Department of Education for a lot of our educational funding, a lot of things that would happen, a lot of implementation when it comes to abortion rights with no more abortion rights, pretty much, that it would just pretty much eliminate for any type of exception and anything connected with that. And what I think is so detrimental about that, and I'm just going to say, when it comes to pro-life, pro-birth, I think that we need to really examine the fact of that a lot of these policies are not necessarily pro-life, they're pro-birth, and people want to control the birth of a child. But then these are the same things within this policy that's cutting off funding for children. So you want to control when children are born, but you're not necessarily trying to provide resources for them when they are born. So it's not necessarily pro-life, it's really just pro-birth. But I really want people to understand that with this project.
May I ask a question?
Okay.
So I prefer the term reproductive rights. So, okay. So in terms of reproductive rights, are you speaking in terms of Project 25 eliminating reproductive rights with no exceptions for the need of an abortion, for medical reasons, for rape? Or are you speaking in terms of it being detrimental because abortion in general? I wasn't clear.
Well, there are provisions within Project 25 that discusses reproductive rights, that wants to implement a policy altogether that would ban reproductive rights, that would pretty much take them away from everyone within Project 25 without any exceptions. Right now, we do have some exceptions that have been implemented that the states can't implement, which are exceptions to the rules of whether abortions are allowed across the board. So I think that would be detrimental to not have any exceptions, especially when you talk about within this plan is prosecution of doctors. So you have where doctors will have to make decisions based on if the mother is in distress, as well as if the baby is in distress, and making that decision, they could be prosecuted for making a decision based on an emergency situation. So you have people that are not medical professionals making decisions on reproductive rights. That is a major issue, because now you have doctors that will have to worry about being put in jail for making a medical decision that they're qualified to make.
Okay, interesting. So that's one area that Project 25 will impact. Let's look at try to move and look at some other areas in terms of the expansion of the executive powers, which gives the president more power. Some people say that would give him the reach of a authoritarian leader, totalitarian leader. What are your thoughts about the executive powers expansion?
I think that that is detrimental as well. I think that America was founded on the three branches of government, which is, which we've studied in back in government class, which was the executive, judicial, legislative branch. But if you expand this power of the executive branch, you're basically eliminating the other balance of power, and the purpose of it was the balance of those powers, and not to create. We have other countries that operate under a dictatorship. And that's essentially what you will be creating by expanding these powers, because, within this Project 25, it talks about elimination of even presidential terms. So we could end up with a situation where it would be a continuous thing where we would have a president that could stay in reign for as long as he would like. That there would be no limit to that power, and then also eliminating the power or taking away the power of the other branches, which would I believe would be detrimental, because, like I said, America has been built on that balance of power. Mm-hmm. And that, the making of the law, the executive branch has never made the law, but mm-hmm. if you expand this power, they will have that opportunity in order to make the law, which I believe would pretty much take away a lot of our freedoms that we experience right now.
Okay. And I want to just direct our viewers to some resources. I want to recommend that you read the GRIO. They have an excellent article on Project 25 to familiarize yourself with the basics of Project 25. You could also look up an article by Axios. They have some great information on Project 25. The Washington Post has some great information on Project 25, as well as CNN and MSNBC. Those are just some outlets that has the information. You can also look at Fox. They have information on Project 25. So I want the viewers to educate yourself. Yeah. And so when you get the information, you can place it in the right category of understanding of what is taking place in the United States. Now, what I want to do quickly is just kind of go over some of the things that it look at that's embedded in Project 25. Okay, cut Medicare costs, cut Social Security, raise the retirement age, elimination of unions and some of the worker protections, higher taxes for the working class. They're talking about how to eliminate the Department of Education and why the Department of Education is not that useful anymore, to teach Christian religious beliefs in public schools, to end free and discounted lunch programs, school programs for some of our poor of Americans and so forth, and to eliminate this whole movement of understanding that evolves around DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity. What are your thoughts regarding the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs? Because you're seeing now where many of these programs are already being eliminated. What are your thoughts?
I just think that it sets us back within this generation. It sets us back because I think that if we are not educated or do not provide those opportunities, that we're doomed to repeat the past. I think that this policy of eliminating these opportunities, we're not advancing within America by eliminating these programs. And I think what people don't understand is that it actually helps to level the playing field, because these people our people will still have the same qualifications. It does not eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion does not eliminate the qualifications of an individual. It just basically says that you have to reserve spots for individuals that have these qualifications and to make sure that we're leveling the playing field. And by, you know, in the same breath, we're eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion. And within Project 25, we're also talking about eliminating even being taught about slavery, even being taught about the reasons why we need to have these programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well,
so we're
these programs
trying to eliminate the whole history, because
mm-hmm.
the programs are based on the fact of what has happened previously in history. And if we eliminate the history lesson and we eliminate the programs, we're trying to pretend at this point that it never happened. And that's not a way to solve a problem. It's by pretending that it did, that those things didn't happen, and that everybody's at the same level and started out the same, when that's just not true.
Okay, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I believe that we have to know our history, whether it's Black history, Jewish history. We need to know our history. And one population knowing their history should not intimidate or threaten a segment of another population. We are almost out of time. This time has gone by so fast. Attorney Johnson is going to come back to be with us throughout this campaign season. As we get closer to the election, we're going to continue to unravel some of these issues regarding Project 25 and the candidates for the upcoming presidential election. Attorney Johnson, give us your last parting thought.
My last parting thought is that it's important that you become educated, and that you make an educated vote this upcoming election. And not just the presidential election, but your local elections are so important. Who's running for judge in your local election? Who's running for Senate seat? Who's running as your clerk? You know, those things are important. Educate yourself, make an educated decision, and make sure you vote this. If you have a primary election coming up, make sure you vote in your primary, and definitely make sure you vote in the presidential in the November election.
I think you are accurate. Please vote. It's been scrolling across the screen for the last 5 or 10 minutes. We want you to vote. Your vote matters. Your vote matters. And we're asking you to get out and vote for this upcoming election. Thank you, Attorney Johnson, for being with us. You have been phenomenal. You always do a terrific job, and we're so proud of you and all of your accomplishments. We look forward to you coming back and being with us soon. Thank you, and see you soon.